everyone. To continue the series on the Blackout short course from Redcat, the brushless one, the Pro Series, we had a little problem where, while running on basically flat surface, the gear stripped up. So Redcat said this was due to poor mesh, and has actually replaced the parts. Not only did they replace the parts, they sent the whole bulkhead. Check this out. Yeah, so they sent the whole motor plate and gear, everything. So we're going to replace that with a new pinion. And what we're going to do is, I've had people tell me on YouTube, from the first video, one of the rear links popped off that adjusts the toe in and that. And this person basically said that they have this problem recurring. Now, we didn't have it again after that first time, but seeing that, we're going to upgrade them to Traxxas Links in the back. So that's the package 1942 from Traxxas. Bunch of ball links in there, and we're going to replace them. So let's get to it. So here we've already taken off the screws in that. So we'll pull off the cover to show you the stripped gears. Now you can literally see, like, the motor hasn't been moved or anything, but it doesn't even touch anymore. So that's not very cool. So let's go ahead and take that apart. Look at this. The dog bones are pretty beefy. Quite a bit to get to the motor though. It's a bit of a pain. You really want to make sure you get that mesh right, otherwise it's going to be a pain in the ass to get to. Redcat told him that when he puts it back together, to put the mesh really tight. Now, in my opinion, that's not very good advice, because the mesh has to be just right. Now, they're probably saying to put it really tight because they don't want the problem to occur again. When you put it too tight, you're looking for more problems, as in more resistance in that. So we'll put the motor in here. Don't forget to pop the center drive shaft back on. So we'll screw that back in. surface is pretty much useless anyway. Now what I don't understand is, in order to get the best mesh, this has to be properly mounted. Yet you can't get to this easily without removing something else. So let's go ahead and take this piece off. And it's probably best if you have a ball end hex driver, which I don't have. Mind you, these are pretty shallow screws, so the ball end hex drivers might be kind of useless. First, what you want to do is align the gear this way so that it's perfectly meshed with that one, which it wasn't before actually. So let's get the screw here. There we go. So what I do to properly mesh is I lean the motor on the gear completely, and then I do a complete rotation. But you leave the screws just tight enough for the motor to move, but loose enough so that when you turn the gear, turn the spur gear, it'll push the motor away enough to give you the proper mesh. Now right away I can see there's a big problem where this screw ends up behind the gear and you can't even tighten it. So this to me is very bad design. So basically in a mesh, this is what you want. Just a little bit of play, no matter where you put it. See? That's a perfect mesh. Now let's see how we can get this tightened up. Now the wires are not really identified. You got the black, yellow, and red here, but these are all black on the ESC. So if ever it goes backwards, just flip two of them over, any two, and it'll be fine. So not a big deal there. Alright, so now we're going to do the links. And the main issue with the links is space. They use pretty small ball links, if you will. That seem to come off fairly easily. They're very flimsy. Just taking them off kind of ruins them. These are the Traxxas Links. They're much tougher. But the problem is they don't fit here, so we need to trim around here to get the ball link in. So we're just going to chop off a little bit here. So first let's get these off. Really need too much space, so we're just going to trim some off the edge here if we can. Now the trick is to take enough off so that when you put the eyelet over the hole, it actually goes further than the center towards the inside. So I'm going to trim a little bit more off. Now always be careful when using a knife. You can also probably use a Dremel with a cutting disc of some sort. I just find I have more control over what I do with a knife. So that should do it. Let's give it a try. Pop a little ball cup in there. Get out the proper screw. That should be about right. I'm going to tell you what the size of the screw is in a second. This screw is basically 12 millimeters. So get yourself 12 millimeter hex. Now let's see how well this goes in. Should be the same thread as the actual ball links that were on there before. And once you get that on, basically what you need is it to move freely. And that's about it. So I'm going to do that on the other side. And don't forget, this is a tie rod or a turnbuckle. One side is reverse threaded. And what you can do if you want the same length is once you got it together, you take the one that hasn't been modified yet and you compare the length. You can see I need to screw it in a bit more. So actually that's pretty much spot on. So you get it as close as you can to the other one, and then once it's on the car you can adjust it. So make two like that. You can feel as you take off these pieces that the plastic isn't as hard or as sturdy. It just comes off a lot easier, which either means the hole is a bit bigger or the plastic is softer. Okay, so while you're putting these on, if you have trouble, you can always take an Allen key or a screwdriver. So you can use a screwdriver or an Allen key to pry it, give you a little bit more torque to get it in there. Goes a lot quicker than doing it by hand, I tell you. Okay, that's pretty darn close. So the knuckle pieces need longer screws, so we'll change those. See if I have anything you can use. So we need to put one of these with this. It basically has to go through, and you need to put a nut on the other side. That's pretty good. So that will be a, I believe I got 17 millimeters. And you're going to need some 3mm thread or M3 lock nuts, or nylon lock nuts. This is where we see if it works properly. And yes, it does. It works perfectly. So these will never come off compared to the other ones. So go ahead and do that. So I'm going to finish this up, and as soon as I can, I'm going to take it for a test drive.